My name is Dr. Clinton Bradley Peters. It is so nice to see you. We have an amazing alumni here, Michael Dechane. It's so good to see you and meet you. He was a forensics guy, and the lore runs deep, is what I'm learning. Our student, Bailey, is going to come introduce Michael, but first I'm going to tell you guys about some events happening. This semester we have more alumni coming on March 4th. So David James Poisson, Jamie Poisson, for whom the David James Poisson reading series is named after, will be here along with published poet Harrison Corbin and Nathaniel Williams. They're going to come give a reading. It'll be at McAllister Auditorium at 7:30, and that'll be seat credit. That's March 4th. And then our final event for the year will be Shane McCrae, an amazing poet and memoirist. He's going to be here in the chapel at 7:30 on April 10th as part of the Georgia Poetry Circuit, also CE credit. So look out for those. But for now, may I introduce Bailey? Bailey Casey, everybody.
This is like abnormally tall, all right? I hope everyone does not have icicles on their nose. I hope they melted by now. Thank you for coming out tonight in the frigid cold that should not be part of Georgia's history. So, Michael Dechane is a poet who carves wooden spoons and indulges his passion for historic home renovation. A word tender and wonder vendor, his work has appeared in Image, Southern Poetry Review, Tar River, Lake Effect, Spiritus, and elsewhere. In 2020, he was awarded the Ruminants Broadside Poetry Prize. He serves as the VP of Communications on the board of the North Carolina Poetry Society. With his partner Reagan, he is a custodian of a home built in 1900 in a cove forest on the French Broad River, north of Asheville, North Carolina. But most importantly, he is a Berry College alum, class of 2000 with a degree in communications. And according to Kevin Kline, the man, he was a star on the forensics team. Dechane's poetry dwells on the natural world surrounding us and the human connections that change us, with a tone conversational as it is narrative. Poet Scott Cairns says of the collection, a lovely and consoling music to accompany our own difficult passages. At the heart of these poems is a hunger to apprehend an intimacy that bellies our apparent isolations. Please welcome Michael Dechane.
The long invisible. Last night it rained, and more hangs over us this morning. It's good. The way these open windows welcome a cooling breeze between seasons, and how it seems to play with the steam of my coffee cup. I think of rollicking dogs in the long, invisible, seedy, wet grass of a topography beginning only now to surface, to be. It's easy to imagine things like this before the peace of the day breaks. It's good to let this be my only news for now. Rain and more rain. A freshening inside my softened house. All of this is very good. Even the door left open, how it touches its latch bolt softly upon the striker plate when each breezy episode rushes in and then subsides. Tap. And tap. And tap. Like a slow heart, still learning to abide. Thank you, Clint, for that introduction, and Bailey, thank you for that. I haven't been in this building since my baccalaureate address 25 years ago when I was about to become a graduate on the lawn of the library. I I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined as a 21-year-old about to graduate that I would be standing back here to share poems out of my debut collection with you. You could be anywhere in the world tonight, and you chose to be here with me and with these poems, and that means more to me than I can possibly tell you. Thank you for being here. To experience these poems with me. My hope is that in offering these poems, it'll be a shared experience. I won't just talk at you. I'll give you the poems the best way I know how, and we'll have some time at the end to talk about that, if you want to talk about it. If you have questions, we can talk about what it's like to publish a book. We can talk about what it's like to try and make poems. We can talk about what it's like to pick up your life after a relationship falls apart. We can talk about anything that's on your mind. We'll have some space for that. As I was driving around campus today, I had the privilege of introducing my partner, Reagan, to Barry. She's never been here before. And what a thing, right? To come to Barry Grove the first time we came to Barry, and like, oh my word. So we were driving around, and I was thinking about just how strange it is to come back to this place that feels so familiar, and yet is so changed from the last time I was here. It's so different. And it got me thinking about what it's like in these spaces in our life when we go back to the places, when we go home, even though you can't really go home again. When we go back to the place that you knew so well, but it's changed. That's a really strange experience, and I've had that experience over and over and over again in my life. And it turns out a lot of the poems in this book deal with that theme of going back or returning. So that's my offering to you tonight. It's a collection of poems selected out of the book that all deal with this idea of going back and not being able to go back, but going back anyway. So, thank you. The next poem I'm going to read is called Jake's Parade. Some of the poems in the book are about things that really happened, and I changed the names of the people in the poem. Sometimes the poems are about things that really happened, and I didn't change the names of the people in the poem because they weren't innocent, they deserved to be called that. Some of the poems in the book are about things that didn't happen at all, that I just made up. And I'm not going to tell you which ones are which for the most part. If you want to ask me in Q&A, that's fine too. This poem is called Jake's Parade. The best fire we had in those days was the night at Jake and Donna's place. It was bitter cold, but we built the bonfire high, then higher. Jake was a little drunk when he came laughing, mostly falling down the stairs of the deck with the Papa-san chair from their living room. "Let's burn it!" he roared, and we roared back with the flames when he threw it on and raised a 3-story column of wild, perishing ash against the darkness still expanding between the flares of diminishing stars. "I always hated that chair," he announced, and we laughed with relish and disbelief as Donna nodded, for once agreed. Everyone stood up and backed away a bit. And in the multiplying heat, we began to see what had done, what had started. It turned out there were other things in the house Jake hated. So he became his own parade, and we the town that cheered him on. Letters he found in a half-finished painting. There were books that no longer worked for him. Then a wobbly bookcase tumbled in. The more he found to burn, the better our fire seemed to like it and lick its quickening lips. What I remember most is the goodness of our faces together, even in that uneven light, once more before our bonds and vows began to vanish. Between us, smoke against the darkened sky. And the guitar. I hear its last soft sounds, the fire played, as each taut string unmoored from its burning ridge. So I grew up on the west coast of Florida, just north of Tampa. Spent a lot of time on the water. Was obsessed with fishing as a kid, that kind of thing. And then I left when my parents were 12 and moved away. And never expected to live in Florida again, but like I said, I had some strange experiences, and one of the strangest was moving back to, not just to Florida in my mid-30s, but moving back to the street that I grew up on, the dead-end street with a single trail on the end of it that I ended up moving into for a few months while we were out to take care of my grandmother. And that was strange. That was one of the strangest times in my life. But one of the things I did when I moved back to Florida was I immediately bought a fishing kayak, like an 11.5 foot open water fishing kayak, and I would go fish every chance I got, 2-3 days a week. And I remember when I was a really little boy, I wanted to be a marine biologist. That was my first goal in life. I was obsessed with Jacques Cousteau, and I watched these episodes, and I was like, I want to be a marine biologist and travel the world with my buddies and smoke a pipe and we do cool stuff. And then I saw an episode of sharks, and I decided I was never going to be a marine biologist. I had to die that day, like 10 years old. So I had this kind of love-hate or love-fear relationship with the ocean, basically. When I got this kayak and I moved back to Florida and started fishing all the time, I was very aware of just like how small of a boat this is. Right? And one of the sketchiest things for me was to stay out late at night, way after dark, way out from shore, in my little kayak and fish. It scared the Jesus out of me. And many years later, I decided to write a poem about that. So this is instructions to my future self. If the time has come for you to remember your life, will only be one thoughtless breath gulped in, and this seeping fight against the exhalation. Be as kind as you can. Go back to the water. Set out in your kayak and paddle down the sun. If it's going to, let the moon rise on you. Over the deep channels drift, eyes raised to count only the unnecessary stars, long dead. The light blasted out their collapsed and burning mouths and stretched these millions of years, fallen at last into your eyes. Through a universe in your mind. How much have they truly died? Be depleted. Done. Alone. Exposed. Keep under the mercy of the night. Pray once, but well enough for wind to come, with a rhythm lapping capless waves on the hull that holds you. Let down a little folding anchor and feel the wind-dried rope that warms your hands, the salted air now steady, steady on your face. Let your anchor mark its furrow in the mud. Keep as you can the sound the wind makes. Cast in the waves each word you could not speak. I wrote a poem, a love poem, when I was in graduate school that I ended up calling Obad, and I didn't realize at the time that Obad is a traditional kind of subgenre of poetry, and Obad traditionally is about a poem written about lovers that are separated at daybreak, right? So they've had their night together, and now the sun is coming up, and it's time to say goodbye. You want to say goodbye, or maybe you do. I mean, go either way, right? But I always struggle with what titles for poems, so I was really glad to find out about Obad, because I'm getting a really easy out for the title here. This is a love poem called Obad. And the connection, this idea of returning comes in late in the poem, but you'll see there's the idea of like you have the experience and then you find yourself returning to it, thinking about it, turning it over and over and over again. So that's how this poem happened. Obad. Do not go, little hour, salt pinch from the sea of time, do not go. My kiss prayed all night against your gray arrival, but now my Jacob mouth clings to you, breaking light. This silence before love pulls itself apart against the current of its own longing is the most terrible silence. My mouth is a lake with a hole in its bed, and all my words run back and drain down into my heart where no one can hear them. I want to be with me in this wordless place, but lie still in your dream. Do not bring us closer to the unlocked door. From the hidden waters of the fallen lake, I will draw up the words. A little hour before the ache. Never go. Be always here. A rest she may lie in some other lonely day. I'd like to share kind of a mixture of poems, especially like a sweet and tender love poem like that. Just before I read you the creepiest poem that I've ever written. This is a poem that surprised me when it happened. I still don't know that I like this poem, but I like that I wrote this poem, if that makes any sense at all. This is kind of an ars poetica poem as well, a poem about the act of writing poetry and something of an exploration for like what poetry can be for me, or for any of us. So that's what I'll say about that. It's called a happenstance, which is a word we don't use anymore. Like, when was the last time you heard somebody use the word happenstance, right? A happenstance is like a coincidence, like a little, oh, can you believe this is happening? Didn't expect that, but here we are. So, a happenstance. If a poem is a dark and unfamiliar room, we enter, fumbling for a light switch, then I am thankful for this bench. Just inside the door, closing, clicking, locked from the outside in the abandoned hallway. Maybe, perhaps we can sit together for a while. Maybe our eyes will help us to perceive what could be in this present dimness. Whatever is before us, I once arranged. So what? In here, I'm just saying to you, I need to make what I can of what there is. Do you have children? Remember how everything we create may transform into what we can't even pretend to control. I'm sorry to say it that way just now. It seems metaphor got us into this mess, but it's so unlikely to get us out. Also, I never want to argue with you again. I'm starting to remember now. Those tottering, darker shadows are poems, and piles of rotten bits I wrote once you left. I tried to forget about this room and all its dust and debris after I shoveled the stinky strophes inside to expire. What are the odds, both of us wandering in here? This is serious, though. Stop laughing. No windows. No way out. No unlikely rescue. And it's a bit late to conjure up a skylight and some skinny, shaky ladder for escape, wouldn't you say? I would say so. Yes, that is precisely what I would say. A trap door. If there is one, I bet it is well hidden and opens by a secret, diabolical mechanism. One of us could slip out as the other dozes, so it's easy to imagine how this could become a place where nobody talks about leaving anymore. I do love that idea of poems as places, not as artifacts primarily, or sort of enshrined things, but places where we can go as a poet, as a writer, and as a reader, to make something new out of what's been put down there over and over and over again. Next poem I'll share is one I'm dedicated to one of my oldest friends, my friend Jason, who was my best buddy in high school. What you need to know about this poem is that it was inspired by a firework. You just never know where a poem's going to come from or where a poem's going to start, and hopefully you never know where a poem's going to go. That's one of my great hopes, is that poems take me places I did not expect them to go. And it's one of the great joys of writing, I think. But I saw a blue firework, and all of a sudden it just sparked this memory that I had thought of forever. And next thing you know, I'm making a poem. And dedicated to my friend Jason. So this is Between Oceans. Arcing electric blue tentacles of fireworks that I find in memory, fitting around my dark and deep. Our 16th summer, Dechane Beach. Blush of our salt sun raised bodies, full dark, cold wind, warm sand. The distant lamps of the pier strung to nothing, and a gash of light carved the sky. A nothing. Us silent, then more. Meteors, tracing synapses of the night mind. Have we ever been so confronted by the violent, unexpected, waiting in our lives? Mercy has hypnotized us out of time. Maybe we thought things like this keep happening, and there would be nothing to forget. We lay there forever, between the oceans, the galactic above, the Atlantic at our feet. Only decades, dabs in the blue flare from here. This next poem is about betrayal, and it's about, in terms of this theme of returning, this is about returning to something that happened that you have to talk about, that's hard to talk about, that you don't want to talk about. The last thing that we want to talk about, maybe, betraying your person, your partner, your spouse. I always feel compelled, I say I don't tell which poems are true, which ones aren't. I always feel compelled to say, this is not my story. But this poem was born out of me needing to find a way to talk about something that was happening to some people I was very close to. And one of the things that I discovered writing this poem was that in the act of writing about not just loving people, but some people I love very much or going through something profoundly difficult, writing about this experience of betrayal, a little bit at a remove, but also very close in another way, allowed me to say things that I don't think I would have been brave enough to say any other way. It opened up a possibility for me to say things about betrayal that were true about me, even if the story wasn't mine. Does that make sense? And that was such a powerful experience in the writing, and then every time I read this poem, it returns to me too. So it's probably the heaviest poem I'm going to share. So there's that. What about it from here? It's called Everything. I told her everything. But after the impossible heat, where we decide and don't, to betray love, to grind away vows, how can we recreate for the ones we have wounded what we thought, what really happened? We can't. Even with the fine details these photos and furtive notes provide, our blow-by-blow depictions told through the fire and sweat now of a body flooded with shame and the sorrows of our hearts and minds, all our evidences are not enough to satisfy their broken-hearted. Why? I'm not sure there's anything worse than that. But when everything wasn't everything, when I had to say again, I'm sorry, there's more. And I told her I couldn't risk, not even then, to say the last, bitterest bits. No, those had to go deeper inside the funhouse rooms of my hidden life, where there are secrets we keep that keep us alive, and the gifts that can only be ours. And there are the secrets that make us sick. What kind of truth sets us free? Why do we need to know and be known? How much everything does that cost? Every reading is different. Sometimes people clap between poems or snap, and sometimes it's this beautiful silence that you're all offering me in response. And that's its own lovely thing too. And it makes the navigating between the poems a little tricky. So thank you again for being here. I feel your attentiveness. I feel you with me in these poems. And that's a really beautiful experience for me. As promised, we're going to take a little uptick here. This next poem is another love poem. And the backstory here is that many years ago, I was with my, at the time, brother-in-law in rural central Pennsylvania, place I'd never been before. And it was gorgeous. He grew up there, and he had taken me back for a week's vacation to meet his parents and see the little town that he grew up in. And it was just like this amazing trip with this guy. I really loved to see this place I'd never been before. And it was a small town, and he was showing me, the high school and all the things that he shows somebody. We'll take it back to where he grew up, right? And he was so excited to take me to the local tea shop. Anybody a tea drinker in here? Do we have, okay, that's okay. I'm not. I've tried really hard to learn how to love it over the years, and I'm a poet, I should love the ritual. They're all kind of 18 reasons I should love tea, I just don't, right? But my brother Brian was a huge fan. And so he was so excited to take me to the tea shop and introduce me to the proprietor, who knew, as an old friend. And we're standing at the tea shop, and he turns to me and he says, "Have you ever had lapsang souchong?" I was like, "I don't know what the hell you're talking about." No, I've never heard of that, right? And he turns to me and he says, "It is the manliest tea you've ever drank." I didn't say anything, I just thought, that is the dumbest thing anybody has ever said to me. Like, what did you possibly mean by that? But it turns out lapsang souchong, the way it's made is, it's like, I don't actually know how it's made, literally, but it's infused with this really intense smell of like pine wood. Like, if you think like campfire, that's what I think. When I smell lapsang souchong, it's like, you just pour a big pot of campfire into a glass, right? And it's got this really intense smell to it. So I love that story that happened, and the tea was terrible, whatever. Many years later, I got to thinking about that experience anyway, and I started writing this poem, and lucky for me, it was one of those poems that made this sweet turn that I didn't expect and turned into a love poem. So it was lapsang souchong. In China, someone closed your leaves in tiny fists that grip the smoke that dry you. A world away, I wait by another fire. The cup waits with me. A little blue dragon that lives in my stove does his work. The kettle begins to sing the one note of his one song. The day becomes itself beyond the glass of the kitchen window. I pour the kettle and you become again yourself, but haunted now by a memory of a distant fire. And the steam rising as smoke. I remember myself, who I was before I knew all night flames, before I tasted you on your name. I think we've all had this experience where you leave for a vacation or a trip, right? You leave your space longer than it takes more than a couple of days. Usually, like, you gotta go like a week, right? And you come back and your own space feels a little strange. You know what I'm talking about? Like, you just notice things you didn't notice before you left. Like, oh, it's a smell, or your own like stuff just seems a little odd, almost like it's somebody else's stuff, right? I thought for years about that weird little experience because it only lasts like this long. Almost sounds like, oh, it's gone. But I kept having an experience, and I kept having this impulse to write a poem about it. It took like 10 years for that to finally happen, but here it is, okay? So after your trip. Now, it could be wherever you have gone has changed. If not who you are, then how you are. But maybe that's why the rooms of your house feel more like someone else's as you step inside. But probably not. It's so unlikely. Whatever you did while you were busy, not gazing at the ocean, gazing back at you burning on your beach vacation, has rearranged something in your deep places. What will you do now? You set your bruised bags down in the unstirred air of the living room. That name doesn't sound right, does it? You might think, this isn't where I live. I don't come alive here before the television night after night. There's more time than we know. There's less time for this, though, than we guess. A few more breaths, and all the shimmer of strangeness blanketing your things, the life you left and are once more about to become, would lift, dissipate. Why? You cannot say. You only know those reasons in the unlocked rooms, waiting beyond where you can strangest turns my life took. Came to midlife when I moved abroad. I thought about making a plug for this. I was thinking about driving around and say, like, if I could have changed my time at Barry, what would I have done differently? Is there anything I wish? And the two things that came up were, one, I wish I broke up with that girl I was dating. Sooner than I did. And the second was that I just wish somebody had taken 10 seconds to pull me aside and said, dude, have you ever thought about studying abroad? Like, go somewhere, right? That just was not on my radar. I grew up a poor kid in a single white trailer in nowhere, Florida. Neither one of my parents went to college. Studied abroad, like just getting to college was its own dream. Like going to study like in Europe or something like that. That was just, I literally, it didn't cross my mind. So as an almost 40-year-old, when I packed my bags and moved to Switzerland, that was weird, and amazing, and life-changing in so many ways. And I again wish that I had that experience much earlier in my life, because I think it would have changed a lot about the course of my life. But I had amazing opportunities to see beautiful things. The things that probably impressed me the most about living abroad in Europe were like the really normal, everyday things as well. This is one of my favorite poems in the collection. I'll share it with you next time. It's about a very normal moment, sitting in Switzerland watching the snow outside. That's it. Well, it's just spent a lot of time sitting at windows, right? Staring at things. Sojourn. I could watch this snow and abide for the rest of the paired night falling into the bucket of light the street lamp brought up precisely for this reason. It reminds me of the way I love to see a salty crew of workers build or unbuild things with the unfeigned ease which comes at last 10,000 times after the uncertain step, those first clumsy strokes. Attending the snow's arrival relieves me of building my own work inside tonight. How kindly the world lays aside my tools and restores to me some open hands. The scene in this window becomes a window, for seeing again the beloved face of a lake and forever still beside. Over its dark depths, a breeze in the morning would lift tiny peaks for the light to play on. The dazzle of the elemental is inexhaustible and waiting for me, both capturing and refracting my gaze beside the lake, before the snow, somewhere I am too drowsy to imagine, now quieted with the sight of what descends, unasked, me anyway, like it. We write poems as long as I can remember. It just goes back as far in my life as I can remember anything else. And I got really excited about making poems, probably in middle school, when it occurred to me that this might be a way to help me talk to girls. I remember the first love poem that I wrote in 8th grade. I remember the title of it. I do remember the last 2 lines. The poem ended, it ended like this: yellow, blue, pink, and crimson. Oh, how I love you, Angie Simpson. I've written a lot of love poems. I've seen a lot of love and a lot of relationship come apart at the seams too. One of my great joys now is to be able to read love poems written for Ray, my person, my partner, the one I should have married all along. Who knew 20 years ago when we first met that you were the one for me. But to be able to share those with everyone that you're saying is one of the best things that could possibly happen to me in my life. So here's one from Reagan. When we got together, we started life together in a 600 square foot apartment, which I guess that doesn't impress college students living in a Just imagine another person there. There's nowhere else to go. It was quite a thing. So this poem was kind of written about that time in my life. It's called Resound. I can hear the woman I love more than steak and frites and apple fritters, more than a winter mountainside coming green, more than anything I might ever make, more than any of you, and all of you together. She is chopping beets. She's chopping carrots and peeling beets. She is undoing the garlic on the dark stone countertops of our kitchen. Soon, the vegetables will brown and crisp, then burn, completely inedible. We don't know this yet. But now, there is still time. She is tending here the evening to work to make us dinner. It's been a shitty day. And there is a beautiful door closed between us. Clear pine, simple lines, softly oiled mat. I closed it to lie down for a nap. I want to feel a few unhurried breaths. Remember how much, so much of this doesn't matter. Remember how much what does. Instead of sleep, the good and soft sounds of her hands reach me. Dim sung by these years, and the door. The day with all that's wrong is. And yet, I rest here. And the sound of the one I love more than anyone alive, staining pink her shirt and perfect hands. Time for just one more short poem. I'll close with the last poem in the book. It's a sonnet of sorts. Technically a sonnet, but early on that. But it has the spirit and essence of a sonnet, which is an argument. This is a poem that just sort of arrived. When I write poems, usually it's like you've been working on it for months or years or something. It's this big intense labor that just turns out forever. And sometimes, and I mean very rarely sometimes, a poem just kind of walks in the room and shows up. And this was a poem like that. So a poem like that shows up and I just say thank you. Keep listening. So in these last minutes, say the burning, unsaid thing. Say what there's time left for. Quarter no cleverness in these last minutes. Say the names of the unloved. Say slowly those names you name. Empty the great belch that scorched earth in your heart. Say then the old adversary knows. Say every fierceness you rehearsed bogs before his ugly, benevolent face. What now? Do you need to know why? Forgiveness heals before pronouncing some. Say the burning, unsaid thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Michael. That was amazing. I meant to say, Michael brought some books for sale. He is giving everyone the college discount. Thank you, Michael. They will be on sale for $15, and Michael will sign the books. You can do Venmo or PayPal. But right now we have some time for questions. I will come to you if you're ready to raise your hand. Please.
So for someone that got a degree in communications and has widely done a lot of marketing work and other things in that, what was it that made you really want to go into an MFA program or draw you into creative writing the way it has, if your entire life before that has kind of been more in the business sector?
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. And it's a long answer, so I'll give you the very short version. Maybe before I tackle your question directly, I'll say that everything I got at the as a communications student, especially as a speech geek on the forensics team, has done me more good than I could ever deserve or imagine. I've used it everywhere I've gone. So yeah, marketing, PR, rhetoric, argument, walking around in the nuances of words, persuasion, that's the bread of everything. It wasn't that much of a stretch then to do an MFA. Poetry layers right on top of that. We got a very long conversation about what poetry is, or what apply to grad school. I mean, I was almost 40 when I went back to grad school. I waited a long time. It was 2016. So I graduated in 2000 from here, went back in 2016. And part of the reason I went back, honestly, was just because I didn't know what to do with myself. My first marriage was about to fall apart. I didn't really know that then, but it was bad. I knew that. And I was in a strange place. We went back to Florida, and I didn't know what I was going to do with myself. And I had a friend, kind of a mentor at that time, who had just graduated from the MFA program that I would then go explore. And the more he got to know me, he said, I think you would be a good fit for that program. It was a unique MFA program. I thought about that too. But I said, okay, I'll check it out. And I did. And I applied, and I got accepted. And I guess it's one of the only times in my life, when I came to Barry, and I landed on the forensics team at Barry, I kind of had this feeling of like, these are my people. Like, these are, like, and they're still my people. They're still some of the closest friends I have today, all these years later. Right? But I had a sense of belonging. And that was the biggest part of my Barry experience, was the forensics team, and the traveling, and the bonds, and the friendships with them. Right? 16 years later, I showed up for my first MFA residency, and I'm talking to the people there and realizing, oh, this weird movie that I have never met one other person who's seen this movie, like half of them not only have seen it, but it's one of their favorite films too. Oh, where have you guys been? Like, it felt like another experience of finding my people, you know. So the way I got to grad school was a little weird decision to stay, wasn't it?
Other questions? Anne?
So you said you take like a lot of inspiration from like your personal life, or whether it's like things that you're dealing with or other people around you are dealing with. Is there like a specific like process, I guess, when you like have the initial thought to like actually like writing it down?
Yeah, I love this question. There is, and that process has changed a lot for me over the years. I think for the longest time, poetry for me was primarily about self-expression. I experienced something and I got to talk about it somehow, right? Or I feel something that's so big or feels so important, I just kind of write about that feeling, you know. So the process was, for a long time, something happened, usually something sad, right? And I went to go write about it, you know. So I was kind of almost just like translating or transcribing what had happened to me into what felt shaped like a poem. Partway through grad school, my idea of what poetry could be and what it could mean to be a poet kind of blew up, which put me in crisis a little bit. And it changed my process a lot. So I was still making notes about, well, this thing happened. Isn't that an interesting thing? Right? Or what a really potent kind of experience. But I was letting those things marinate for longer and making more notes about them in my notebook. And increasingly over time, what I'd say is that I'm letting what I actually experience in the world, or what I witness other people experiencing, help me find my way into a poem, but I'm really trying to work outside my direct experience. I'm trying to write beyond my own life. And that's because I want my poems to be bigger than about me. I want them to have enough room for anybody that wants to come and spend some time with them. Right? And that means putting my imagination to work in ways that I never have before, which is still a little scary, honestly. There are days I'm like, can I do it? Is it okay? But mostly it's exciting. And the process, is still, I can talk for a long time about my personal process, and I have a whole series of notebooks. I have a series of files organized on my Google Drive. I keep this draft, and I go to this draft, and there's a spreadsheet for what I submitted to magazines. We talk about that for a long time. But the stuff that I suspect you really want to know about, like how does it move from inspiration to poem, the creative process. I'm doing a lot of that work a little differently. Really, in the last 6 months, that's changed a lot for me too. I had a good friend who lost their husband very tragically. He was only 41 years old. He died very suddenly. And him dying has messed me up in a good way. It's helped me realize if I've got something to say, I gotta say it right now. There's a sense of urgency to the work now. That wasn't there in the same way before. Does that make sense? And process-wise now, a lot of times when I feel an impulse for a poem real work in poetry and writing in general, I think happens in the vision later on. So I trust that there'll be time to come back and make it what it needs to be. But that initial, I feel this, and I've got to say something. It's an important enough thing to say. I've got to say something about it. I'm writing this first draft, standing up at the window, thinking about my friend Austin. That's changing not only the process, but the kind of forms I make too, which is a painful gift.
Hey, you said that one poem kind of just fell into you, but that's it, thank you. Is there some sort of, do you notice a trend with something that seems for you a little bit easier to write and understand? Or is it kind of, and more to you don't really understand what happens to make those poems come easier? Is there like, one area that you really can dig into a lot easier?
Yeah, if I'm checking your question, I think I'm following you. I don't know where those poems come from. Right? Those poems come from some other place. To me. So in addition to my MFA program, I went back 2 years ago to start a certificate, 2-year certificate course in dream work. So it was a deep dive into analytical psychology and I worked with Carl Jung and some Freud. But I took one psych class at Berry. I made a D in the class. I couldn't stay awake during the lectures and the prof, right? They got angry at me and said, if you can't stay awake, don't come to my class. But I can take the test if you want, but so I made a D. And I didn't think about psychology for 20 years. And a couple of years ago, I got really interested in psychology. So part to your question, now for the last couple of years, I've been kind of swimming around in weird waters of analytical psychology, which posits the idea of a collective unconscious. That's sort of an inherited, somewhat autonomous soup that all of human experience is rattling around it with what you call these archetypal energies, right? And that they can somehow break through somehow into our personal unconscious and then even into consciousness. 5 years ago, me would have said, what are you talking about? And it's so woo-woo. What? That's kind of how I approach what just came out of my mouth. Now I'm not so sure. And writing a poem like that, and the way I describe it as just sort of writing, makes me wonder, about energies and forces of something that's bigger than me and somewhat outside of me, somehow break through into consciousness. so that's a weird question to a delightfully, or a weird answer to a delightfully weird question. So, thanks.
Cool, I think we have time for one more question.
I have been volunteered to help continue a tradition here. What is your opinion on Beyonce?
You really hit me in a weak spot here. Okay, so I can answer this question having, if you really press me to say the name 3, maybe even 1 Beyonce song, I'm not sure. I'm terrible at this game, even with artists I know and love. Beyonce, she just won Best Album, right? I think there's no denying that there's huge talent there, and that she has found a way to make music, to make art that is really resonant for huge numbers of people today. We get into these discussions sometimes as poets, maybe as artists more broadly, about high art, low art, pop art, or poetry. A lot of times it's literary versus non-literary, and most of those conversations are bullshit. I think that it's easy to want to denigrate someone's art because it's popular, or like poetry. I think they're so accessible. Poets that I know and like personally, that I respect quite a bit, and one of them is not Billy Collins. This is so accessible. Billy Collins is a fine poet. I think the more important question is, why does Beyonce's music resonate with people? What is it that it's touching inside people? ways that she'd be creating something that people identify with. What is it that she's doing to create something that so many people really feel it resonates with? That's fascinating, even if you don't like the song per se, right? So I guess my opinion of her is that she's really done a thing, to make what she's made. And my sense of her from very much on the outside is that she's a groundbreaker. She's moving into spaces that we wouldn't have thought possible not that long ago. And that's what we would.
Good answer.
Thank you.
That's an impossible question. If we could give Michael one more round of applause. Thank you so much, Michael. Again, books will be on sale $15